What's up, everybody? This is Ripples and Wales back for another video. I hope you're all doing well and having a great day wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing. It's pouring down here, it's Monday, and I just thought I would like to do a video today on the ISO20022 standards. It's going to be quite a brief one, but I wanted to kind of to outlay the theory that I think the ISO, as Bobboy said, is a bit of a Trojan horse, and I think it's way bigger than people realise. I certainly think that there's a very specific timeline to it, and I think it leads to the groundwork and framework and regulations, or rather standards is a better word, to be laid down for this new system, this crypto asset based system for payments and settlements across the planet. ISO 20022 is nothing to do with the actual cryptocurrencies per se. It's the metadata involved in it, and certain cryptocurrencies have to have that availability of the standard to be able to use like that. So just a quick check in with the markets. Everything's a bit red at the minute. Bitcoin's, I keep on putting it at the wrong currency for you all. I've got it in GDP here, but I know that you all are most of you are in the dollars based system. Bitcoin's 25,942, Ethereum 1665, and XRP at 52 cents. Still an absolute bargain. The rest really are in the secondary part of my vision. I think XRP is holding up very, very well. I think that there is obviously there's been big volume for it. There's been big sell volume and big buy volume, but the trend is your friend, and that looks okay to me for the time being. We could see a change. I don't know. We'll have to just see it and play out. I'll leave that to the pro charts guys. I'm just an observer really of these things. I do keep my eye on them. I have been buying for sure. I've probably bought a little bit more than I should, but you just never know, right? It's come back down to that nice ground level on that. I think that a little bit of good news in the future could push it up, but we'll see. Anyway, Swift. What was Ripple's holy grail? It was Swift. And why was Ripple's holy grail Swift? Well, Ripple's wanted to make a dent in the world, in the universe rather, with payments. And Swift were the atrium, the hub, the center of all world payments. And so in a lot of the information over the past few years, we've seen that Ripple was heavily focused on payments, and you've got to see who the competition was or is, or and the legacy kind of the breakdown of the legacy system per se. Now these are the guys that are in charge of the old system. It was to a dollarized system, and the technology was kind of like 60s or 70s I believe. And they use a system called MT or MX in the messaging. You must understand Swift is just a telecommunications company. They're based in Belgium, and they were probably run by the old guard. We're going to put that in full hats on, but whatever they were doing, they were old technology-based systems, and they were just sending messages. Okay, and Ripple's competing with them on that sense because Ripple has a product called RippleNet, which is the same system but an upgraded tech stack, which means you can send the messages infinitely quicker. And it has obviously its other side of the product to ODL to deal with the liquidity. Now, as I said to you, Swift only deals with the messaging, sister side of things. They send the messages to the correspondent banks, who are Citi, JPM and HSBC, and those guys settle all the transactions that need to be settled. They zip and zap trillions of pounds worth of value that needs to go around the world each day. They're called liquidity providers. Ripple was in the middle of replacing them really with ODL, because with the idea of ODL, you don't need to use correspondent banks. You could just source liquidity from Ripple systems and send it through the line. And it's a very clever system because Ripple's entire stack takes away the work from Swift and the correspondent banks who provide liquidity, which is why there's so much resistance, and why you're seeing a lot of FUD, and why you're seeing this take a long time to come out, because you are dealing with enormous banking giants who do not want to move. We've heard Tim Draper talk about it in the past, that they will fight it, they will grab hold of hands, they will get their government friends to try and ban it, and eventually they'll try and adopt it, which is where we're at now. The G20 regulations came through, or rather a news brief on the G20 regulations came through today, and that was very, very significant. Because now we know the frameworks are being laid for crypto assets across the planet. Now, the main utility for these crypto assets, it falls into different kind of pockets, let's put it like that. And each layer 1 blockchain will have a different purpose. One may be big data, one may be financial transactions, and Ripple, their kind of layer 1 blockchain, which is the XRP that they use, is focused on payments first and foremostly. So this is who they're taking down. And this is a great clip of Brad Garlinghouse talking about Ripple basing Swift.
Now Swift is kind of a competitor. It's slightly more complicated than that, because Swift is really just messaging. When you send a Swift transfer, it's not liquidity. You're actually sending bank messages to banks that have liquidity. So to some degree, Citibank and HSBC, really the top two, JPM, those are the top 3 liquidity banks. And when you're sending Swift messages, you're sending messages to banks to release liquidity and making sure the debits and credits match. So to some degree, really boil it down, Ripple's competing with the liquidity of Citi and the messaging of Swift, but in one, because we're both messaging and liquidity. And at the end of the day, again, as I described, Swift was developed 50 plus years ago.
Huge things. And I always like to bring things back to stuff that I've seen in the past. Some people might find it BS. I don't. In this scene here, in the Christmas scene, BG is showing you that, it's all about liquidity and Nostros and Swift. And this is what, Brad was just kind of trying to say, that, Swift is the messaging, liquidity is the kind of the money side of things that needs to be moved around. And Ripple was replacing this. And this is what BG was saying to you in the scene, that it was all about Swift. Ripple's goal, their San Grail, their holy grail, is Swift. Because their payments is their number 1 goal. That's what they want to do. So they have to take Swift out of the equation and make them irrelevant. And they do that by providing better value. They don't need to do any nasty dark stuff. If you just provide a better solution for the markets will eventually decide who wins, regardless of the trickery and chicanery that you present to the world. So the old standards that Swift used to use were MT and MX, and Bobboy talked about these back in the day, and those were the old messaging standards. Now we know ISO20022 came out with this new messaging standard, so it means that even Swift and everyone had to upgrade their messaging systems to this new formal standard of approach. And so there's a great video here. I think we'll try and get back to
the largest Swift-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology. Just last week we saw a remittance company who's using Ripple's technology. They reduced the price per transaction to their consumers from $20 per transaction to $2 per transaction, and they saw an 800% increase in usage overnight. That's the type of dynamic that Swift isn't able to support that we're able to address right now, and that's something we saw just in the last couple of weeks. So we certainly want to see banks succeed in this new world order and take advantage of these technologies. To the extent we can work with Swift to do that, then that's great.
The old music. That was from BG. Anyway, that was a good clip. Thanks to the Plan XRP. Where is Swift based? It's based in Belgium, and so I don't know if you know about the Belgian flag. This is the Belgian flag, and I'm just going to bring something to your attention here. Yes, let's put our tinfoil hats down. See the snake that Brad's standing on, the knight is standing on, and this scene, which is next Christmas, it is in the shape of an S, and it has the Belgian flags and the colours, and also the European Union on it. So you can kind of see where this is going. I'll let you put the 2 and 2s together on that one. Let's not give it all away. So we've then got, what currencies have this, I guess, what would it be cast? Compliance is the word for the ISO20022 standard. Well, you've got XRP, XDC, XLM, IOTA, Algorand. They're all compliant, which is pretty cool. Now this is a very interesting diagram, and there's many of them around, but we can split the kind of world's payment institutions down into APAC region, US, EMAs, and global. And this is the kind of it says here, fasten your seatbelt, shift to the ISO standards, will speed ahead your the papers. So we can see 2022, a lot of these systems kind of started to go live. 2023, a lot more went live, and by 2024, everyone will be live. By 2025, you'll have a fully fledged ISO in every one of these regions, all coexistent phase. And you see Swift, see it's got this coexistent phase, fully fledged, fully fledged, fully fledged, fully fledged, fully fledged, all the way down. Swift is the only one that it's obviously running a parallel rail. We can see other diagrams that, you know, it said exactly the same thing. Let me bring this up. There we go. Oh, there we go. I'll bring this up if we can. No, that's not what I asked to do. Oh, my computer's about to go apeshit, isn't it? Hold on. Right. Here we go. So the globals change four-year coexistent phase. Target systems, which is the payment system in Europe, the UK. Preparation phase in 2022, 23, 24, 25. You've got mature phase here, and you've got kind of when they adopted things. Here's another image here. Same thing, just giving you a different layout. 22, 23, a lot of these systems are now, you know, the RTS. We've got the link system in Canada, chats, chips, chaps, T2 systems in Europe, and how they're all adopting the ISO standards. Okay, and you can see 2023, November 2023, March 23. They use the equinoxes, interesting enough, very significant there. But everything by November's, right? So we can see that the standards are being set. Very important to gauge that. Now, I'd like to go to a text. This is by Anders, and I brought up the tweet here. This was huge, and big shout out to Anders. Bobboy telling us in ISO, you know, why ISO standards for cross-border payments is a big deal for Ripple. Read this carefully, since he's an ex-employee of Ripple and he knows this stuff. I'm not sure I can had a lot of insight. I'm sure things have changed a lot, but just for clarity, ISO is way bigger than you might think at first. It replaces the previous Swift standards of MT and MX and adds a lot of other things. The reason this transition is extremely helpful for Ripple's bank sales team is it means that every bank is required to implement the new technology. Banks hate to change an already working process. Change could introduce new problems, which means bankers get fired. And this is the number one reason banking integrations don't happen. New systems development is expensive and risky. Mistakes can generate bank losses or fines. Bankers get fired. The person you are negotiating with must have the product budget, development budget, or risk appetite. With the monetary changes happening, the person you are negotiating with only needs to have one product budget. Money for development has already been allocated elsewhere, and nobody gets fired for following a mandate. That makes the sale much easier. Lift for Ripple. Very, very interesting. That being said, bank software sales are still a bit of a hard process, especially with the SEC lawsuit adding FUD to the process. But even if a bank's wait for settlement, their ISO upgrade system becomes much easier for Ripple to integrate with them. The biggest impact is going to be that even smaller banks are going to be upgrading their systems. This creates a much larger pool for ODL compatible banks. Smaller banks get the most benefit from ODL. It lets them cut the larger correspondent banks out of the flow and cost. That is huge. What he's saying there is that, you know, all these banks are now going to have to be in a position where they're kind of forced to be compatible, at least at the base level. And that's the most interesting thing. Like, they are forced to be compatible. It doesn't mean the biggest banks won't want to change. The little banks at the bottom end are the ones that get the best out of this through ODL. So it's a bottom-up starting process. But as you get, you know, there's a flywheel effect, isn't there? As more and more institutions, banks and SMEs all start adopting this, then it forces the bigger entities and banks into a position where they're missing out. So they're probably the last to join the party, but they're the biggest to join the party. This is the ISO kind of the page. A single standardization approach, methodology and process repository to be used by all financial standard initiatives. Huge. ISO is a multi-part international standard prepared by ISO technical committees, T68 Financial Service. Okay, so, you know, we don't need to go through this into huge format. We know that it's required. Everyone has to do it. That's that. We can go to some of the Ripple documentations from their own website. Shaping the future of cross-border payments. The world is converging on a new global standard, ISO, the de facto global data standard for modern payments. Data, see, it's about metadata in the payments. To help enable this next step in global interoperability and to meet the evolving needs for our customers, Ripple is now part of the ISO standards body, the first member focused on distributed technology, DLT. Very interesting. They were the first members. Okay, very, very interesting. And I kind of just want to bring it back to kind of like a bit of a tinfoil hat stuff. Why not? Hey, that's what we like to do sometimes, and it's all right. We can look at the literature, we can look at the research, and then we can look back at this and see if there are any patterns. The interesting ththings that I saw from this, whereby in this particular scene where you've got a lesson going on, BG is giving a tutorial, a lesson on what was occurring, on why the king was in the presence. And the king being in the present can be a metaphor from, you're not going to get an evaluated XRP price while the king is in the way, because he's slowing things down with his wrench. But the reason the king is there and he's unhappy is because the first scene, which is the castle scene, is complete. You see a little tick. Look at my cursor. There's a tick next to the castle on the whiteboard. It's done. Ripple have entered the kingdom. They are now taking over Swift on a day-by-day basis, and the king and the old systems are not happy. And this is the thing to take from the castle scene, as this played out in 2020 and before 2018 onwards to 2017 onwards. It's a long drawn out time affair, as I've been saying to you, but we can see that the organizations who are on the stickman are now being cut loose, okay, because the bear's in the castle, and Ripple are kind of freeing up the or maybe it's not Ripple, maybe the bear is someone else. I'll leave that to your imaginations. But anyway, the king's castle is being besieged, and the fact is the technology is enveloping that old system. It's become so prevalent, the DLT technology, that the old system is being swallowed by it, and it's all down to the nostros and the payments and liquidities, which is Swift. And so, the old castle, when you control the money system and you control the flow of the money system, you control it through a hub. And what was that hub? It was Swift. Okay, they had a stranglehold on where all the transactions went through. And that isn't a good thing, because some countries get hammered, and we're in a day and age where we can't have that. And so you're going to get this neutral system that will at least replace Swift and not weaponize it. And that's what you saw in these two pictures. I'll close it out with that. I hope it always makes sense to you. Some people don't like this. That's cool. There's no problem at all. Take what resonates with you and discard the rest. I always say that. It's the same in any spirituality. Whatever resonates with you all. Anyway, this is my take. It's not financial advice. This was a cartoon bear wearing a silly hat. I hope you're all well. I hope you're having fun. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Be blessed.